It's interesting to me that I was listed as a performer when I've actually never considered the work that I do to be performance. Maybe perhaps not even as art, even though I use creative thinking to approach my environmental work. So I sat for a while thinking about that and realised that actually what it is that I do is more in the realm of ritual, and my work is concerned with storytelling and mythology, and it's been proposed that ritual is the physical manifestation of mythology. So I decided that in presenting or doing a performance for the workshop, I would approach it as a ritual. So I've created a piece, which is actually a piece for you, the participants, and as this unfolds, you will be taken on a journey of me collecting sticks for you. The disparity in my work is that I work very much in the local, and yet my thoughts and want is to work on broad-scale systemic paradigm shifting. A couple of years back I realised that the idea of such a instrumental shift couldn't possibly happen dependent on an individual or a collection of individuals, and that it had to be a kind of group societal shift, and I wondered how that would happen. Started thinking about governance, and not so much politics but more law in the sense of cultural law, still spelled L-A-W. So during my masters, this kind of notion of ecocide was bubbling to the surface as well, because a lot of my drive is around species extinction. And I had the opportunity of meeting Polly Higgins earlier this year, and have also connected with the Australian Earth Laws Alliance, and so now I'm trying to find a passage with this connection between art in terms of how I understand ecological art practice and contributing to the efforts of bringing in earth jurisprudence on an international level in the next 5 to 10 years, if possible. Herman Priggen said to me, an artist is not defined by what they make or the artifice that they produce, but rather by the way they see the world. And I think in that moment my path was kind of determined and changed forever, and I really don't regard myself as an artist in the modern sense. I don't really prescribe to any of that industry. It doesn't affect the type of things that I understand a person's responsibility to their culture. I am an artist in the sense that the language that I use to do my work is creative, but beyond that, my work is about the environment and the health of ecological systems. It's not about art. Ngunnawal. I could talk for a long time about language. I feel that language is the connection between humans and the rest of the universe, as in the energetic, physical, metaphysical, tangible point that connects us to everything else. And it's not just linguistic language. During my masters I was looking a lot at language, and there was this correlation that was discovered in one of the research texts that I was looking at between high biodiversity areas correlating with diverse linguistic areas. And there was a couple of other things that started triggering. I was thinking about this expression that Aboriginal people use a lot about singing up country. I was working with some Maori artists and looking at their language and the connection in terms of their self-identity and the words, ecological words that are used in expressing self. And then also ideas that David Abram has been bringing up around this kind of burying of ecological meaning in language. Anyway, there's something about language. I think it's important to have diversity of language. Linguistically, disciplines, expressions. Yeah, I think that's instrumental. Otherwise, we're heading for a monoculture. The political use of language in terms of power. Taking the language away from a people pretty much takes away their culture. And yeah, it worries me to think about the whole world speaking one dominant language. Whether that language is linguistic such as English or binary code, the noughts and ones that support our technological revolution and the radically changing the way we connect. I just see the reflection biologically will be a monoculture. How can you understand, the complexity of a place which has been learnt over hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years by people, and that knowledge is built livingly into their language? How can the language that comes from somewhere else and is applied to place actually show any knowledge or understanding or desire to connect with place if it's not born from the very ecology it tries to speak to or in? It struck me earlier this year when I was sitting on the Brunswick River. I don't know its former name. I was looking up at these really massive gum trees, and it struck me that all of this land in Australia, the creatures, the waters, plants, came to know themselves in relationship to people over tens of thousands of years by a particular language that was spoken to them. That was the point of connection. And then, as if overnight, when settlers came, the process of colonisation didn't just affect the Aboriginal people, but the trees, for example, all of a sudden were called by another name. And I thought about what that would be like for a person who had grown up, say, for 50 years of their life being called by a name that they understood themselves. Has an energy to it. It sculpts the way you understand yourself. And then instantly overnight starts being called by another name that they have absolutely no previous relationship to. That displacement is profound when you think about how that affects the way a country relates to people. It's got really deep reverberations. My species were born to earth to be its teller. Once upon a time, we told of great skies filled with flocks of gods, a place where spirit and goddess carved out the making of all things matter and moral. We told of creatures, mountains, rivers steeped in mysteries, much more than we could hold, and our tongues beat like wings fanning the story of life. But I can't tell you these things now. Too much loss abounds. and there is yet much more to lose. When you hear the bird that calls between worlds, know that extinction is close. Theirs is a cry, not a song, a kind of screaming that comes crashing through the sky with that buoyed lilt, those red feathers, this ticking bomb. These sticky web fingers cannot name the living dead. It is time. Burn the trees, hail spirits with the smoke, or your devil, whatever incantation stills the chaos for you. Life is broken here. This bird, who flew to the heavens to find us water, now uses wing to limp far, far away. And how will the rain find us when they're gone? Without them, I cannot tell.